I once betrayed my husband in pursuit of academic glory, only to lose everything in the end. Now, returning to where it all began, I find my ex-husband has moved on with a new love. Me, a former academic star, now teaching history at a community college. My story is a journey of betrayal, loss, and self-redemption. Let's formally listen to today's story of infidelity. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. I grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan, and I thought I'd never return. After high school, I left to pursue my dream of becoming a well-known historian. I call escape the quiet life. I spent years pursuing academic success, moving from city to city, always looking for the next opportunity. Along the way, I made decisions that cost me my marriage and the stability I once enjoyed. These mistakes haunted me, but they also helped shape who I am now. When my academic goals failed, I found myself at a crossroads. The dreams that had once inspired me seemed distant, and I realized I had lost sight of what was truly important. So I went back to Royal Oak, hoping to start over. Teaching history at the local community college was not the prestigious career I had hoped for, but it allowed me to reconnect with the simpler things in life that I had forgotten. My name is Elise Harper Patteron, and at 45 I'm back in Royal Oak, Michigan. This is my third attempt to rebuild my life, leaving behind the mistakes of the past. I'm now a history professor at the local college, a position I would have turned down previously, convinced that I was meant for something more. I used to believe I was destined to change history, but that was not my vision. Others pushed me into it, taking me away from my previous happy life. I was eager to fit in with those I thought were smarter than me, only to realize too late that they had used me to their advantage. I was only a tool, a joke. After 6 years, I returned home to try to move forward. Before I continue, please allow me to describe myself. I am 5'' tall, with short, straight brown hair, hazel eyes, and a curvy figure. My legs are my best features. They are thick, toned, and muscular. They were what Ethan, my ex-husband, to me in the first place, but they also Ethan and my professors leading to the end of my happy marriage. Speaking of my ex, he has been on my mind a lot recently. Leaving him was the biggest mistake I'd ever made, but I didn't have much of a choice. You have probably heard this story before. A happily married woman returns to school, is seduced by the excitement of a new world, and eventually has an affair with someone in power. In my case, the chair of the history department promised to help me succeed academically. Naturally, the promise included his bed. It began as a thrill, but then he advised me to broaden my intellectual horizons. My husband found out, and I vividly recall the day he and his private investigator confronted us. My professor said something stupid, and my husband grabbed his throat. Following that, my husband kicked me out. He never spoke to me again and gave me everything. During the divorce, none of our old friends passed away messages, and the college fired my professor. I had no option but to move on. In California, my professor began passing me around to his colleagues, all in the name of career advancement. It became the norm, and after a while I felt like his possession rather than a historian. I saw other historians advance through hard work while I was getting used. It was too late for me to realize that the relationship lacked tenderness and care. He had no intention of marrying me, telling me that I was not the type of woman he would marry. Nobody ever genuinely cared about me, and I was left feeling empty. The breaking point occurred after I got out of the shower and entertained one of the professor's 70-year-old girlfriends. I overheard them talking about me, saying I wasn't on their intellectual UAL level. They said I wasn't smart enough to teach high school history, let alone college. I spent a lot of time crying afterward and to make some difficult decisions. I couldn't sue anyone because I did everything voluntarily. The professor was not married, but he had a long-term relationship with a physics professor from England who didn't mind his flings as long as he came back. When she called. In the end, I was fired for bringing it up, but they agreed not to tarnish my records so I could find another job. So I turned to Royal-ife. The community college here is pleasant. It is not prestigious, but it fulfills its purpose. My classes begin in 3 days, so on Friday afternoon I biked around campus to get acquainted with the area. Passing an outdoor cafe, I noticed a Mustang GTS stopped a light seemingly racing. One a red convertible with black trim and the other a black coupe with red trim. The drivers a striking young woman and another individual exited at the same time. I expected at a confrontation, but instead they met between the cars and the man kissed her passionately as if they would never see each other again. I smiled, remembering how it felt and how long it had been since someone kissed me like that. The woman was stunning, about 5'1", slender but shapely, with long red hair and big innocent eyes. Though I am not bisexual or gay, I would consider it with her. She exuded a glow that only women love possess, a beauty that transcends physical appearance. She took the man's jacket and cap, wore them backwards and walked into the cafe tossing her keys to the valet, amid honking from other drivers. As the light changed, the man got back into his car and drove off. I realized he was at least twice her age, my age. I stood there stunned, recognizing him as my ex-husband and soulmate. I found him. What is going on with him and that girl? My name is Nathan Foster. 6 years ago I discovered that my wife, Elise, was cheating on me. We had a wonderful life and I believed our marriage was solid. Her betrayal left me devastated. I felt like dying, but life went on. After some time I went back to work. I received a few €1 as a settlement from her former school, but I kept trying to help myself move on. For a few years I focused solely on work, avoiding dating and socializing, because I suspected something was wrong with me. Elise seemed to believe that my love was insufficient, and she sought out other men who were superior to me. I eventually realized that Michigan's manufacturing industry was struggling, so I decided to go back to school and earn a degree. Deep down, I believed that if I had been smarter, Elise would not have abandoned me. I chose business management, but I'm terrified. Doubts plague me. What if I'm not smart enough or too old to fit in? I enrolled anyway. The first few semesters flew by and I got straight A's. My 4-point GPA convinced me that maybe I wasn't so stupid. After all, I still did not date anyone, especially not in high school, because I was closer in age to the faculty. Starting something with a faculty member was not worth the effort, and dating a young student felt inappropriate. Then, unknowingly, I met Lily in Trigonometer class. My life began anew. We joined a study group with other students, but quickly realized that no one else was studying. Much so we formed a study group of 2. Spending time with others either brings people closer together or highlights their differences to us. We quickly became friends. I enjoyed our time together and can't wait to see her again. Initially it felt awkward. Guys approached her at our table as if I didn't exist. I was just the old guy. After all, she'd use me as a shield to deter the more persistent ones. That was how our first argument started. I told her it wasn't fair to use me to avoid her social issues, and she should handle them herself. Looking back, I think I was just jealous. Regardless, she grabbed her books and exited the library. Following that, I only saw Lily in class. We did not talk or sit together. I noticed her glancing at me several times, but I never returned her gaze. She joined another study group and, despite having offers based on my good grades, I preferred to study independently. We avoided each other for 2 weeks, and it continued had fate not intervened. One evening I noticed a guy from her new study group attempting to force Lily into his car. She resisted, and before I knew it, I had intervened, grabbing his collar. Surprised, he let go of her and turned to face me. "It's just a misunderstanding." He explained. I let him go, but then I heard him say, "Damn tease." Lily began sobbing. Something snapped in my mind and I punched him. I then helped Lily up and hugged her. I escorted her to her car and remained until she left. I almost skipped class after that, but I went regardless. I arrived late in SAC instead of my usual spot. When I glanced at the board and noticed Lily looking around, I ducked behind the girl in front of me. We had a group project in class and I collaborated with the students around me. It was basic work unit circles, converting angles to radians and calculating periodicity. It did not appear to be business related, but it was busy work. We were almost finished when the teacher gave us a break. My group mates left the room, but I remained in my seat, reading on my iPhone. I was about halfway through reading when I heard footsteps. I knew it was Lily. I could always feel her presence, but I ignored her and walked out of the room. When I returned, Lily was seated in my seat. The girls I was working with did not appear to mind, and another guy in our group mentioned that Lily wanted to join us because she was working alone and knew we were friends. I replied, "No problem," grabbed my books and moved to a different row to work alone. I discovered our mistake, corrected my answer, and submitted my work, identifying myself as the only group member. The instructor didn't think it was funny, but I explained that it was a group dynamics issue. She softened after class. Lily waited for me outside. She had those big blue eyes that could draw you in, and she said, "We need to talk." I said no, we don't, matching her tone. "Yes, we do." She insisted why I asked. As I walked away, she appeared surprised and unsure how to respond. I figured I could avoid her until the next class and things would eventually fade. But then she called, and without thinking I said hello. I asked, "Where do you live?" She replied, "I don't want to talk on the phone." "Why not?" I asked. "If we can't talk on the phone, we should meet at a neutral location so you can avoid me again." "No, we need to work this out," she said reluctantly. I gave her my address and suggested we meet in the common area. 10 minutes later she walked in and everyone paused to look at her. She found me and sat across from me smiling. "Okay, what is your problem?" She asked. "Nothing." I responded then, "Why are you upset with me?" She inquired, her expression a mixture of frustration and concern. She was intelligent and beautiful, and I couldn't understand why this was so important to her when she could find another person to study with. "You are the one who stormed out of the library," I said, "only after you accused me of exploiting you." She shot back, "You made a minor disagreement into a big deal the next day. I tried to get your attention in class, but you didn't look at me. I moved to another study group expecting you to talk to me or tell me off, but you didn't. It was as if you didn't care." And then he grabbed me. "I am sorry." I said that I interrupted the award ceremony. She smiled. "It fits." I said. She proceeded. "Do you know how many people saw him trying to get me into his car and continued walking?" "Not you, though. That's when I realized you still scared." I was looking forward to class. "I had hoped you would call me, but you did not. So I arrived an hour early today hoping we could talk." She looked at me with intense focus, which made me uncomfortable. "And you did not show up every time the door opened." "I thought it was you," she explained. "Then, when you arrived, you did not look at me. I was aware you were still upset." "I am not upset." I insisted. "You're just being stupid." She smiled. "I was not going to put up with it anymore, so I joined your group and waited for you." She came closer and I could smell her perfume. I started to feel nervous, But she kept talking. You left the band to work with someone else. Those two nerdy girls were rude to me. After you left, she said, so that's where we are now. And where is that? I asked. She replied, the place where we discuss and try to solve our problems. So what do you hope to accomplish here? I asked. You're not listening. She complained, irritated. I want us to return to normal. Define normal. I said we're doing a 16-week course together. Correct. She nodded. We are halfway through. Right. She nodded again. Do you get along with everyone in the classroom? I asked. Of course not. She responded, this class ends in 8 weeks and we probably won't see most of these people again. Right, but I asked. Probably so, what is your point? She asked. We worked together, disagreed and parted ways. We both received good grades. The class ends. Life goes on. I said, this sounds like a depressing film. She spoke softly. Nonetheless, I consistently make mistakes. Do you know how I felt after what you said? I felt bad because it was sort of true, but by the next day I felt completely alone. Alone. I asked, I'm currently taking 4 classes. I hate math. She said we sat so close that our hands touched. Asked me about my favorite subject. She said your composition course. I responded, how did you know that? She asked. You told me in the first weekend, I responded. And you remembered. She smirked. However, things have changed since then. Question 2, which color are my eyes? She asked as she closed them. It's too easy. They are blue and become darker when you are upset. I said, see, you are my only friend here. She said there are many people who want to be your friend. I said most of them only want one thing. She said, how old do you believe I am? You are 23. I said, do you understand why it took me so long to start school? I married a year after finishing high school. I intended to work before college, met a guy, and when we got engaged, the guys who were following me around backed off. She said I wasn't sure why she was telling me this, but I stayed because I enjoyed being around her. I am not stupid. I know what I look like, but I am not that type of girl. I wanted to advance with my intellect, but no one gave me a chance. I waited until after marriage to pursue my goals, but Steve was incredibly persuasive. She spoke her voice hardening to nights before the harvest ball. I gave in him by the night of the dance. Everyone knew. Do you know what his excuse was? She asked. I shake my head. He said I was so beautiful that he had to tell people to change their minds about my sexual orientation. I couldn't believe anyone would make such a lame excuse. I forgave him and we married, but he cheated on me with a maid on our honeymoon. I simply wanted to be a wife and mother, perhaps have a job that I enjoy, but he was sleeping with my friends even when we were dating. He was cheating and had no reason to stop. He told his friend that I was a trophy lovely to look at, but useless in bed. My supposed friends were separated into 2 groups. Those who were jealous of my appearance secretly dated my husband and were simply as trumpets. So I divorced him and received some compensation. What is 50 of nothing? She asked. Listening to her, I realized her life was not what I had imagined. I came here to start fresh and advance my career. However, the guys are all the same. Nobody gives me credit for having any intelligence. They simply want something physical. As with Steve, they move on once they've obtained their desired outcome. Nice guys are too intimidated to ask me out, and when they do, they behave similarly. Once they've gotten comfortable, then there's you actually listen. Remember what I said and look me in the face. I've caught you staring at my face a few times. I enjoy our time together. After this course, I intended to continue taking classes with you, and yes, I may have used you a little, allowing people to think you were my boyfriend, but only because you appeared willing. I thought you liked me too, but then you dismissed me as if I didn't matter. That really hurt." She bit her lip and my heart softened. "I wanted to see if you were jealous when I worked with those guys, but I just got into trouble and you had to save me." "Lily, I'm not good with people. I said I was almost twice your age. 6 years ago, I experienced something similar. After a long marriage, my wife cheated on me and left. At least you moved on. I have not dated or socialized, since I'm not sure if I'm good company, let alone a friend. Anyway, Lily and I made it up. Passed the trigonometer exam and began taking more classes together because we both pursuing business degrees. We discussed numerous requirements over the next few months. We always studied together, even when it wasn't required. She recommended visiting various locations to observe how successful and unsuccessful businesses operate. We visited restaurants, museums, and shops together. Finally, she invited me to a dance club that she had heard about in another class. I said, Lily, shouldn't you ask someone else to go? Why should I do that?" She snapped, her eyes narrowed, and I knew I needed to tread carefully. "Going to a dance club isn't really research," I spoke cautiously. "It feels more like socializing." I added, "Are you saying it feels like a date?" She said, leaning back with one hand on her hip. "Exactly," I responded, "and I've already stated that I'm not ready to socialize." Then she spoke, giving me a patient look. "We frequently go shopping, visit museums, and eat out together. Have I ever mentioned any of these things to anyone else?" I thought for a moment. Okay, I guess I assume you did. Dan, we've been dating for several months. Everyone knows it, except you, she explained. So why can't we go dance? After being shocked to see my ex-husband with this girl, I stood outside for a few minutes, processing. I suppose part of me believed that if Dan was still in the area and hadn't remarried, we might have a chance. I knew that if I hadn't messed up, we'd still be together. However, seeing him with her made me feel awkward. Without thinking, I followed her into the cafe. It was crowded, noisy, and she appeared popular. Everyone recognized her. When she moved to a table in the back, people kept stopping to speak with her. She ordered a drink and, despite several requests to dance, she talked to her friends and occasionally took notes in a notebook. I had to admit she was attractive and popular, but I didn't understand why she was my Dan. Perhaps she was an escort, which could explain a lot. Maybe Dan, still broken after I hurt him, couldn't form a normal relationship and ended up with someone like her because she was the center of attention. I was invisible. I could not even get the waiter's attention. Intelligence was clearly not valued here. The guy next to me noticed. I stared at her and said, "That's Lily. She's hot, but do not get your hopes up. I do not think she swings that way. She's definitely popular." I responded, "Not in the way you think." He said the majority of those around her work for her. I turned to him, sensing he might have more information. "Let us find a table and talk." I suggested paying for his food and drink. That worked, and we soon found ourselves seated near her. I hadn't planned it when I left home, but my entire life became focused on one goal, getting Dan back. I'm willing to fight this girl for him. In my opinion, I should be more compatible with Dan than she was. Given my life experience and recent growth, I felt like I had the upper hand. If I could make Dan forget the past, we could start over and I'd spend the rest of my life making amends. If he was still angry after all these years, it meant he still cared about me. My new friend, Jake, filled me in. Her full name is Lily Andra, but everyone refers to her as Lily. She's about 25 years old, but with that body no one cares. His comment about being 25 years old nearly made me choke. However, she is no longer available. He added, "Look over there." I watched as men approached her table, but she turned them all away. The guys at her table took a protective stance. Jake stated that she is only loyal to one guy. However, everyone is after her because they want to work for her. What are they doing? I asked. She and her man are both business majors. They started a business as a class project and it grew rapidly. It is a brilliant idea, very simple, but no one had thought of it before. I was surprised Dan wasn't a business genius. When we married, Dick explained that they run an extremely efficient temp service. They're already making a lot of money, and once they graduate they'll be full-time. You should see how their cars match Mustangs. He exhaled. I would love to be that guy. He's old, but he's intelligent and charming and she adores him. They're always together, holding hands and wearing each other's belongings. It's sickening, but I would give anything for her to look at me that way. His words struck me hard, as if he knew exactly what I feared the most. I needed to reassess my situation. She was prettier than me, clearly better built, and her business skills were far more useful than my academic knowledge of history. The most difficult realization was that for years, I had underestimated Dan, believing he was beneath me. While I watched, Dan approached her from behind and kissed her gently in an unusual upside-down position. She responded, tenderly, stroking his face before snuggling up to him, beaming with joy. I could not stand seeing her with him. Jake, whom I'd been ignoring since Dan appeared, spoke up again. I told you it was a little nauseating, but they are cute. If you like fairy tales, they're like an uninteresting old married couple, no wild parties, simply doing things together. She has their entire life planned and he simply goes along with it. I asked, he shrugged whatever. I was dating one of their employees and she told me about their plans to finish school, expand their business, purchase a larger home, marry and have children. He spoke as if it were the most ridiculous thing he had ever heard. What a waste of education. He scoffed, but I suppose they know what they want me. I plan to travel the world, make a lot of money and not stop for anything. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that after a while, the wild lifestyle would get old. You begin to feel like an object rather than a person and you realize that you do not matter to anyone. I came here thinking she was a courtesan, but now I realize I've been acting like a strumpet. Even worse, my ex-husband has fallen in love again, perhaps even deeper than with me. I tossed a few bills on the table and left before Jake's meal arrived. Dan was totally focused on her and didn't notice me. Lily and I officially began dating, and it was both strange and wonderful. We had a lot in common, but there were some differences. We usually laughed them off and worked out a compromise. The age difference was not an issue because she was old-fashioned and we both had trust issues from our past. We were like two broken birds who couldn't fly separately but soared together. Our company, Inc., started as a learning project, as part of a class assignment. We set up a fictitious temp agency with Lily handling administration operations. We weren't physically engaged yet, but we cuddled and kissed frequently. Our agency is unique in that it hires college students to fill job openings. We created all of the necessary materials, including spreadsheets, flyers, business plans, letterhead and business cards. When we presented our idea, the professor reminded us that a group project necessitated more participants. He suggested some students and we invited Rebecca Lewis to join us. She was not a partner, but she became an important team member. Rebecca excelled at marketing, which Lily and I had overlooked. She took over the aspect while we continued to improve the business. One day after receiving our grades, we received a call from someone who had discovered one of our business cards and wanted to hire us. We laughed about it with Rebecca, but Lily got serious and asked, Dan, what are we going to do next? Whatever you want. Lily, I responded no seriously. she replied. I do not want us to drift apart as we work for different companies and lose touch. I assured her that I would never cheat on her, and we decided to turn our project into a legitimate business. Our plan was to provide temporary workers for various businesses, including college students with relevant skills to fill positions ranging from secretaries to lab technicians. It was a win situation. Businesses gained skilled workers, students earned money, and we turned a profit with low startup cost. Lily handled the finances. I concentrated on client relationships, while Rebecca launched a marketing campaign. We even created a system in which professors recommended top students and received a small percentage in return. This motivates students to work harder because they know they could get a job with our company. The best part was that Lily and I got to spend even more time together. We ran the business out of my apartment, often spending days working and planning. Lily eventually began bringing her clothes over to change in, particularly during our late-night study sessions. One night, while practicing a PowerPoint presentation, I noticed Lily dozing off. "Come on, sleepyhead. I'll take you home," I said. She replied, "I'll just sleep here." I was stunned. Rebecca arrived the next morning, her usual bubbly self, and asked, "Where is Lily?" "She's still sleeping," I responded. "Why not go get her? Did you fight?" She asked. "I do not need to check here," I said. Rebecca raised an eyebrow but remained silent. "That's how rumors start," I explained. She slept in the bed and I took the couch. "Seriously, for someone who is supposed to be older and wiser, you are surprisingly inexperienced. A woman who likes you spends the night and you don't even stay with her," she said, clearly in something I hadn't considered. "Perhaps she wanted to see if I could be trusted," I responded. Lily emerged from the bedroom sleepy and went straight to the shower. Rebecca, still shocked, said, "I can't believe you aren't you know. Things are getting serious. Everybody in her dorm will notice." "What do you notice?" Lily asked, toweling her hair and passing me a brush. "That you did not go home last night." Rebecca responded, "I am home. Or if someone asked me." Lily said, "What did they ask you about?" I inquired. "You are so oblivious." Rebecca said so. Lily and I moved in together. We were still not physically engaged, but I was ecstatic. After the first night, she told me I could sleep in bed with her as long as I kept my hands to myself. I stayed on the couch because I did not want to risk anything. The next night, she pulled me into bed and simply said, "Please stay." The next morning, we woke up together thanks to Rebecca's usual early morning knock. "Hey, have you seen our corporate BB lately? We're doing great with our money. I'm buying a car, so no more rides from you two," she explained. And that is how Lily Inc. began and how Lily and I became even closer. For about 3 weeks, I settled into my new routine of teaching classes, grading papers, going to meetings, and reconnecting with old friends. Unfortunately, the majority of them continued to avoid me. Time had not healed those wounds, so I avoided anyone in my new life. I started going to a clubhouse 50 mi away. Few men approached me at first, but later that night a pot-bellied man did. We ended up in the back seat of his car, a reminder of how bad my relationships had gotten since my marriage ended. My heart ached in while I never saw it or his new girlfriend on campus. I was constantly hearing about them. Sophia Daniels, a new friend, suggested I go out more and invited me to a girls' night out. We agreed to meet at the same bar I'd been to the week before. When I got to the staff office, I heard Melvin's voice and sat down to wait. She called me and then introduced me to someone, but when I saw who it was, time seemed to slow down there. She was tan with long legs, wavy hair, and plenty of cleavage. Dan recognized me instantly and recoiled in disgust before I could say anything. His girlfriend jumped between us protectively. Sophia quickly attempted to diffuse the tension. only to realize her mistake too late. Dan muttered something and walked away without looking me in the eye, as if I were some rabid dog. Lily, his girlfriend, stared me down, assessing me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, Melvin admitted. Realizing the situation. Ex-wife, I clarified, confirming. Melvin seemed surprised and said she hadn't expected that. She continued, noticing the strong tension between us. You don't seem like his type because I am not a 20-year-old cheerleader. I snapped back. Do not underestimate her. Melvin warned that she is intelligent, and if she believes you're a threat, things could get ugly. Still shocked, I nodded as Melvin pressed for more information. I told her briefly about my marriage to Dan, how he supported me and how I eventually betrayed him. When he found out, his heart broke and he simply left. We never spoke again until today. Melv and empathized, pointing out that academics frequently fail to meet expectations. I explained how my REL relationship with my professor had deteriorated and how I ended up teaching at a community college. Now that Dan had returned to my life, he refused to look at me. You want him back, right? Melvin asked with each breath. I admitted. Melvin advised me to move on, but she also mentioned that I had a few options. First, I could hire a lawyer to change our divorce agreement and force Dan to communicate. Second, since I never signed the divorce papers, we may still be legally married. Dan's living with Lily could be considered infidelity. My eyes widen with the possibilities. If we were still married, I could force him to attend counseling and temporarily disrupt his relationship with Lily. And if something happened to her, who would Dan turn to besides me? Helping him through his grief couldn't do my previous mistakes. I realized I needed a lawyer, a plan, and makeup. I told Lily we needed a vacation. She raised her fingers, asking where we were going and for how long anywhere. I replied, how about Paris? Women always want to see Paris. Not me. She explained it as just another city. And why? Now she looked at me suspiciously. Is it because of that evil woman? I should have kicked her back then. I found this amusing. Lily rarely used profanity, so imagining her fighting Elise was amusing, especially given her small stature. Nonetheless, her protectiveness made me love her more. Lily declared, we are not leaving town because of her. We have a business to operate. Plus I'm already on vacation. Every day we spend together is like a vacation. Dan, it is not the dream I had as a young girl, but right now I can't imagine anything better than us. That woman harmed you once, but I refuse to let her do it again. She teaches history, so we don't have to deal with her. Let her go to hell, she said firmly. Is there anything else? Ma'am, I asked with a grin. Yes, we need a board meeting right now. She smiled playfully. I'll call Rebecca. I said, not that kind of meeting. She said, laughing. When I'm bored, I use the kind we keep in the bedroom. She jumped up and dashed for the door, and I chased after her, forgetting my worries. Why did I worry? I was in love with the world's most beautiful girl. Who cares if my bitter ex-wife worked at our school? Because life always has a way of messing with you. That is why, over the next few days, I worked tirelessly on my strategy, concentrating on 3 key areas. First, I needed a good attorney to look into the legal aspects, particularly the possibility Dan and I could still be married. I hadn't signed the divorce papers yet, but there was a clause stating that they would be finalized after a certain time period regardless. However, Dan had recently vanished after filing the lawsuit. If he had not signed the papers, the case could have been dismissed. My priority was not his money. I wanted Dan back, and, of course, his money would follow. The second part of my plan was to improve myself. I joined a gym, hired a personal trainer, and began a strict eating and exercise regimen. Competing with Lily required me to be in top shape. I knew I could never match her beauty, and yes, I flirted with the trainer briefly, but so what? The final part of my plan was to find people who hated Lily as much as I did. Ideally, they'd catch her leaving a restaurant or club and beat her up wild and waited. I wanted to record the incident so I could show it to Dan and make him believe she did it willingly. That way, she'd be, like me, a cheater and he'd dump her. I could then swoop in and collect the pieces of his shattered heart. A few weeks later, I was prepared. My attorney confirmed that our divorce was never finalized, so we were still legally separated. There had been no contact or division of property, but this was sufficient for my requirement. My lawyer told me that pursuing money would get me nowhere, but all I wanted was to meet with Dan. Originally, that meeting exceeded my expectations, but if everything goes as planned, I should be able to have everything. On the day of my appointment, I dressed carefully in a new floral print dress and my hair was freshly styled. I sat in my attorney Mike Miller's office waiting. Things didn't go the way I expected. Dan never did what I expected anymore. I had hoped he would come alone, or at worst with Lily, but he arrived with the state's largest divorce law firm for attorneys, to secretaries, a paralegal and a transcriptionist. Dan entered the room after the legal team had arrived, holding Lily's hand. This time I had a good look at her. She was naturally beautiful, without makeup or surgery. It was going to be tough. She also had a fierce expression, which made me realize she was more formidable than I had previously thought. She wore a conservative black dress, which made my outfit appear less serious, and she never let go of Dan's hand. Then I saw it the largest sapphire engagement ring I'd ever seen, set with diamonds. There was no way I was letting her marry Dan. My lawyer made a statement, but it was clear that we would not have a trial. Dan's legal team crushed him by the end. He had practically served them coffee. However, he was able to secure one key point. I needed a face-to-face meeting with Dan to sign the paperwork. That was my true goal. All along, the lawyer explained that I felt bad about how our marriage ended and that after counseling, I wanted to help Dan find closure. His legal team agreed it sounded reasonable, so Dan nodded quietly. The lawyers started leaving the room to give us privacy. 10 minutes. I replied coldly, "You give your speech and we're finished. I am staying," Lily said, standing up, her gaze fixed on Elise like a lie, and I asked, "You ready to fight?" "That is fine." Elise lied. "I hoped you would stay." Her response took both Lily and me by surprise. I had hoped to spend time alone with Elise, but I had anticipated Lily's presence. "Elise, I sincerely apologize for the way I treated you and how our marriage ended. This was entirely my fault. You deserved better." Elise then turned to Lily and said, "Lily, at your age you may not realize it, but balancing a career and a family is difficult for a woman. I pursued academic success and sacrificed everything important, but I ended up with nothing. People I trusted took advantage of me, and by the time I realized what I had lost, it was too late." Looking back at me, she said, "I still remember the hurt in your eyes, Dan. When you found out, it bothered me, but not enough to stop. If I could do it again, I'd ask for your help, because I am confident you would have tried to save me. I'm glad you found someone who can help you move on, and I hope that your life together is even better than ours." She exhaled. "I was surprised to see you both in Melvin's office, Dan. I had no idea you were here, or perhaps you were dating someone. Our old friends will not speak to me, so I wasn't sure where you were. I hope my apology relieves the tension and maybe someday we'll be friends." She looked at Lily again. "Lily, I apologize if I hurt you that day. It's difficult to watch the man you loved happy with someone else. All I can say is that you both seem blissfully happy. Please forgive me." I could tell I'd had some success. Lily's face softened slightly and she no longer appeared to be about to bite her nails, but Dan remained as angry as ever. Clearly, they are not buying what I'm saying. They both stood, nodded at me and walked towards the door. Lily returned with a sad smile, making me wish I could read our minds, but Dan did not even look at me. I couldn't understand why he hated me so much. Didn't this mean he still had feelings for me? And if he still had feelings, why would he be with someone like her? After we had left Elise's office, Lily remained unusually quiet, clearly processing everything. Finally, she asked Dan, "Do you think she truly meant the apology?" I looked at her, then back at the road. "I do not know, Lily. Perhaps she does. Perhaps she doesn't. However, nothing changes for us." She exhaled. "You're correct. It's difficult to believe someone can change so much." I nodded. "People can change, but that does not erase the past." She remained silent for a while, deep in thought, before asking, "Do you still have feelings for her?" The question landed hard. I pulled over to face her. "Lily, I have no feelings for her anymore. What I'm feeling right now is anger, disappointment, and possibly some pity. But what about love? No, that no longer exists." She studied my face and said thoughtfully, "Okay, I believe you." I took her hand. "Lily, you are the one I love. The person I want to be with. Elise is my past. You are my future." She smiled and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Nathan. We sat for a moment holding hands. Then she said, "Let us go home." The days following our meeting were tormenting. I couldn't stop thinking about Dan and Lily, replaying each word and gesture in my head. Is it possible that he still had feelings for me, whether I said too much or too little? Or was it really over? I became obsessed with their every move, trying to figure out how to put a wedge between them. My plan to make Lily look like a cheater was already in motion, but the wait was excruciating each day. I became more desperate and frantic. One evening, Sophia called Elise. "This is unhealthy. Perhaps you should consider moving on." I laughed bitterly. "Move on? How can I, when Dan is right next to that girl living the life I should have had Elise? I get it, but this obsession will not get him back. It will only destroy you." I sighed and rubbed my temples. "Maybe you are correct, Sophia, but I can't let it go, not yet. Just promise me that you won't do anything crazy," she said. I paused, then responded, "I promise." But deep down I knew I was not done. Definitely not. I couldn't shake the feeling that Elise was not finished. Her behavior during our meeting led me to believe she was planning something. I didn't want to worry Lily, so I kept my concerns to myself, but I did decide to take precautions. I contacted a friend who had recently earned a degree in criminal justice and explained the situation. Elise had been seen with a known dealer and was passing money through B.R.I. Carter Reynolds, whom I had saved Lily from during our only fight. My friend, Greg, stated that the evidence appeared suspicious but was insufficient for an investigation. So I spent every night with Lily. That week by the weekend, Lily was restless. She told Dan, "If you love me, take me out. I don't care where, dinner or dancing to a movie. Please get us out of here." Despite my reservations, I could not say no to Lily. Besides, she wanted to go to public places that appeared safe. We even brought Rebecca along as an extra set of eyes. We chose the cafe, one of our favorite places. It was busy enough that nothing suspicious could occur. Nonetheless, I hired a few guys who occasionally worked for us to keep an eye on things. They thought it was overkill, but they accepted the money. As soon as we walked in and went to our favorite table in the back, I had a bad vibe. I noticed Carter and a couple of other guys who Lily had rejected sitting around looking unhappy. But I wasn't too concerned because our guys were also present and we had the numbers. The real shock came when we got to our table and noticed someone sitting there. It wasn't that the table was full. It was occupied by whom? She had a new haircut, dyed her hair and wore an expensive dress. I wondered what she was up to when she noticed us. She waved us over. I attempted to ignore her and find another table, but Lily nudged me, grabbed my arm and led us over. "Hello, Elise. Can we join you?" Lily inquired, cheerful and unassuming. It all occurred on Friday night. Carter, some of his friends and I had been hanging out at the coffee shop all week waiting for Dan and Lily to arrive. They took longer than expected, but I wasn't going to pass up this opportunity. The plan was simple: spike Lily's drink with the special cocktail we made, then have Carter and his guys take her out the back door and transport her to the next location, where 10 more guys were waiting. Ironically, when I first looked for men who didn't like Lily, I only found Carter, so we recruited guys who liked her. Instead, more men soon flocked to join and we had to turn them away. Carter, his 2 friends, and the 10 guys at my place totaled 13. Just like the Last Supper, Lily was unaware that this would be her last supper with Dan. If she truly cared for him, she'd break up with him herself or show him the DVD, and he'd leave her heartbroken. She would not want that. "How are you doing, Lily?" I asked, smiling. "I'm doing great." She responded cheerfully, snuggling up to Dan. She ordered drinks for everyone and brought me another beer. Dan was not drinking just one, Pepsi unopened. They stood up to dance. As the waiter brought their drinks, he nodded at me, signaling that the job was completed. I leaned back, ready to enjoy their final dance together. It wasn't a dance, just Lily clinging to Dan, which grossed me out. When they returned to their table, the entire cafe was watching them. Lily sipped her pink fruit drink, complete with a small umbrella. Dan kept an eye on me. They returned to the dance floor, leaving me with another girl. "Dan appears to be doing well," I said, attempting to initiate conversation. "You mean, since you ripped out his heart and abandoned him for some old fart?" She responded with a smile. I was shocked. Look, I'm Lily's best friend, but I'm not like her." She said Lily may appear sweet, but she's tough. If you try to mess with her or Dan, she will fight back. If she cannot, I will. She said it all with a smile, making it appear as if we were just talking. I did not have time to respond before Dan and Lily returned. Lily announced that she was going to the restroom and Dahlia got up to follow her, though Lily appeared hesitant. Finally, Dahlia left, leaving me alone with Dan for the first time in nearly 7 years. "So, Nathan, I just wanted to let you know that you've made great progress. Leave it alone." Dan interrupted, his voice cold. He looked at me as if I were something to squash. I realized my mistake, but it was too late. In that moment, I realized I couldn't win. The only way to keep them apart would be if one of them died. But if she did, Dan would do whatever it took to find out who was to blame. There was no way to get him back ever. Looking toward the restrooms, I realized I was too late. Dan couldn't see Lily start to stagger as Carter grabbed her from behind. Rebecca attempted to scream, but Carter punched her, knocking her down. He picked up Lily and went to the back door. Suddenly, several guys rushed after them, yelling for someone to warn Dan. I grabbed Dan's hand and begged, "Wait. Dan, she's not the right person for you. She's too young and not smart enough." Dan looked at my hand, issuing a silent warning. The next thing I knew, I was falling backward, colliding with the table, and everything went black. Walking out of the club that Friday night, I felt more terrified than ever. I jumped into the car as some of my guys pointed at the taillights and vanished into the night. I didn't care what type of car it was. Whoever did this couldn't escape. I accelerated out of the parking lot, the supercarriage roaring as I closed and passing another car full of my guys. I was about to use the nitrous when I noticed the car slowing down and pulling into a driveway. I don't want to tip them off. I parked at the next house and dashed back inside. I was prepared for anything. I heard a door slam, but Lily was nowhere in sight. Just a bunch of guys playing cards, not paying attention to me. I staggered toward the door and one man grabbed my arm. "Hello. I won the prank, so I'll be next after Carter take a number," he sneered. I grabbed a bottle of wine from the table and smashed it over his head. He collapsed at my feet. The room fell silent for a moment before someone muttered, "Oh crap, it's him." I grabbed another guy's neck and smashed him across the card table. The room cleared as everyone dashed for the exit. I opened the door just in time to see Lily barely conscious and fighting off Carter. She collapsed into a chair and, despite my rage, it almost seemed to me Carter turned too late. My punch struck him squarely, followed by a kick to the side. Then I felt hands grabbing me from behind. "Stop it. You will get rid of him." An officer said that was the plan. I responded coldly. The cop looked at his partner and said we did not hear that. I went over to Lily, removed my shirt and covered her, and survived and of vital signs. "She is on something." One said we needed to take her to the hospital. The officer stated and we will take him in for questioning. Greg arrived and spoke with the officers, who nodded before leaving us alone for a moment. He gave me a vial of clear liquid. "What's this?" I asked. "Do you want to go to prison?" He responded I drank it, even though it tasted like cleaning solution. The officers returned, handcuffed me and began to place me in the patrol car. "Hold on." Greg instructed the EMS to take my blood sample. They did. As the patrol car drove away, my arm stung, but my thoughts were on Lily, in the hospital. She was kept overnight for observation. I hadn't been charged yet, but I could face multiple assault charges as well as reckless driving. Rebecca paid me a visit later. Her left eye was swollen shut. "Are you okay?" I asked. She replied that she felt much better. Now, seeing that idiot in the hospital after you had dealt with him made me feel much better. "Lily is upset." She spoke quietly. "She doesn't understand why you aren't with her." "They are holding me for questioning," I explained. "I'll tell her," she said. "What does she think?" I inquired. "She believes you see her as damaged goods." Rebecca laughed. Later, a solid-looking man with gray hair and a worn suit entered the room carrying a folder. "You don't look like the type," he asked, checking my arm. "Which type?" I asked. "I'm the lead detective on your case. Give me your side of the story." He said, "I already know what the evidence suggests, but I'd like to hear it from you." I replied, "I need to see Lily." He looked at the folder and said, "The alleged sufferer. What do you mean by alleged?" I inquired, irritated. "Calm down. I'm just trying to get to the truth." He explained the evidence may indicate that your girlfriend left with another guy to make you jealous. In a fit of rage, you struck your ex-wife, chased her down, and attacked several people at a private residence. "That's ridiculous," I replied. "Then tell me what actually happened," he urged. I explained that nothing was consensual and Lily would never do such a thing. "I'd still love her, no matter what. That was exactly what I needed to hear," he said. He opened the door and saw Lily and Rebecca, who appeared exhausted. Lily approached slowly and took my hand. I was terrified. She said, "Did you know I was coming for you?" I replied by hugging her. Lily joked that her Uncle John didn't like me, but she knew I'd do anything for her. Detective J.N. told me I could leave. They had been following Elise and knew she had planned everything with Carter. All I received was a speeding ticket. 3 weeks later, Lily and I got married. We sold Lily for a fortune and Lily became a stay-at-home mom. After we discovered she was expecting, Elise never recovered from the incident. A few months later, I paid her a visit in a psychiatric hospital. The doctor hoped it would help her progress, but when I saw her, she couldn't recognize herself. She believed she was. Lily joined me and made it clear to Elise that she had lost me forever. We walked away laughing, never seeing or hearing from Elise again. Here is the next story. This past year, I discovered that my wife of 15 years was cheating. It was the second time she had cheated on me and 5 years after the first time we reconciled. After she begged me to stay in the marriage, we went through a 2-ish-year honeymoon period during which I felt completely in love with her. Again, however, she returned to her habit of making herself available to any guy who expressed even the slightest interest in her affair. This year involved her flying to a conference in another state with a man she met online, which I found out about right away. She indicated that the affair had ended and that she wanted me to stay with her. We have 2 children, but I was torn because it became clear that this was a pattern that could not be broken. In the months following that date, I tried to talk to her about the affair and my frustration with the situation. She only responded with gaslighting and blame shifting. Nonetheless, after a month, I informed her that I agreed with her that we needed to save our marriage. She responded this time saying, "I can't make that decision with you right now." I went off the deep end. How could this woman, who had cheated on me and then expressed her desire to stay with me, put me through this? I tried to save her marriage for another month, but she refused to consider counseling or talk about our problems. It was one of the most oppressive months in my life. I began discussing the situation with some friends and family, and their reactions were universal. What on earth are you doing? Why are you attempting to save a marriage that has essentially no hope? As I talked with them, I noticed a shift in myself that I began to change from. I just want this woman to. You can be happy without her. So what about my children? Your children would benefit from being in an environment where you are happy rather than one where you are unhappy. There is a significant imbalance between the 2 parents. One night it struck me like a lightning bolt. You need to file for divorce. I walked into our bedroom, where she was watching TV, and declared I want a divorce. She responded, "Well, if that's what you want, I want it." I was terrified that I would later regret my decision and beg her to save our marriage, but I didn't. Instead, what occurred was a very amicable and agreeable separation. Surprisingly, our relationship near the end of our marriage was probably one of its highlights. I think it's because I stopped caring. I didn't care how she viewed me as a partner. I was not going to let her determine my happiness anymore. I kept the house because she couldn't afford it, but she found another apartment nearby. We agreed on everything in our divorce, so we were able to dissolve our marriage so we didn't have to fight over minor issues. We have 50-50 custody of our children. I'll give it to people who are going through it or will be going through it soon. If you live in a state that allows for dissolution rather than contested divorce, here's some advice. Do it absolutely. Speak to an attorney. However, there is a lot of advice on here to get down in the muck and perform a knockdown rag-out. But if you can reach us at a satisfactory agreement between the parties, you should do so. Having said that, always keep an attorney in your back pocket. Don't be afraid to use divorce to get what you want if you believe your partner is being unfair or there is an issue you can't compromise on. But I can say this. Don't let the emotions of the affair make you feel compelled to use divorce to exact revenge when you can come out of the process as amicable. I've started dating again and I've met a woman who I really like. She also divorced 6 years ago as an affair against her. But most importantly, there is no BS. I'm with her. She and I have similar love languages and are able to communicate openly and honestly. That was my marriage for so long. We are taking it one day at a time together, but this is the most positive I felt about myself in a very long time. My children have adjusted to the situation, which was my greatest fear, that they would never adapt, feel resentful, or even thrive. We underestimate how adaptable children are, but I'm simply happy. I am truly happy in a way I have not felt before. I make time for myself. I am getting to travel more. I see my friends more frequently than when I was married. I get to make my own decisions again. I saw a counselor just to talk about this trauma in my life, and she made me feel better, that I wasn't crazy, that I had been gaslighted for so long, that it's amazing I was able to push through it. Following an affair, you may feel as if you are in the depths of despair. Believe me, I know it may seem even more depressing when you have to accept that your marriage is over, but happiness is only on the other side. But you need to let go. You need to regain control of your life, and once you've made that decision, you must put that part of yourself in a box. Take inventory, then move on. Your ex-partner is now in a relationship with her former affair partner. Who cares? That is not your life anymore. Your ex-partner is broken, most likely irreparably, and they will not change. And you can't let their brokenness rule happiness anymore. They can be broken, but not on your watch, not in your emotions or heart. Happiness is out there, and you may not find it right away, but you can prune back the dead leaves and free yourself of the dead weight that is dragging you down, because the happiness you may find in a broken relationship with a broken person is only temporary and will always keep you from achieving fulfillment. Take care of yourselves, friends. There is hope and happiness out there. Oh, thanks for the uplifting bedtime story. It's like a Disney movie, but with more lawyers and less singing animals. So let me get this straight. Your marriage hit the rocks, took a nosedive, and then belly flopped into the pool of infidelity. Not once, but twice. Talk about overreaching in the relationship struggles department. But hey, kudos to you for realizing that being married to a serial cheater is about as fun as a root canal. Without anesthesia. Update. Sometimes I have to laugh at how they are all the same. It really is remarkable how similar the stories on here are, aren't they? I realize we all have our own experiences, and our reactions to the experiences are different. Valid. But it's incredible just how exhaustingly formulaic these people can be. This is especially true if the cheater focused early on. Via a texting relationship, the cheater finds someone that they swear they are just friends with, almost always of the opposite sex. The text threads are just always the same. One of them drops a touch of an innuendo here or there, just testing the waters. Because, heaven forbid you just heffing converse with someone instead of having to check to see if maybe there's some mutual sexual tension. After a while, the innuendo becomes joking between them. Of course, a normal person in a committed relationship would have told the other person to evolve, but we're not dealing with the real people here. Then the innuendo and joking turns to less joking and more actual sexting. Then, at the loops, here's a picture of me semi-nude, and then on to full nudes later. Oh, but when you confront them, they say something to the effect of they're just sending a friend. But they are a friend. That just really gets me any notion that perhaps something nefarious is. A foot is met with gaslighting. When I was going round with my ex-wife and her multiple affairs, they almost always begin via texting. I had the nerve to ask her, why don't you just effing stop? Like, what is it about your brain that either tells you to joke about sex with another man, or, if the man jokes about it, first keeps you from telling him to F off anyways? Reading through stories on here just helps affirm to me these are fundamentally broken people who, by and large, subscribe to the Hollywood tropes of what cheating is like. Just something on mine this morning. Bet cheaters can't even be original enough in their cheating and are also absolutely terrible at covering up their lies. The Cheater's Playbook, a riveting read for anyone looking to explore the depths of human creativity, or lack thereof. It's like they all went to the same school of infidelity and graduated with flying colors in the art of deception. Update, update. It's been a year. I realized it's been a year since my ex-spouse moved out of my house, and that this community helped me realize my marriage was over due to her infidelity. In late 2022, I figured you all deserve an update. Tilda R on the affair. Wife cheated on me. In 2017, we reconciled, and then she did it again in 22. It's been a year since she moved out and our divorce was finalized. First and foremost, her. My relationship with her is okay. We have 2 children, so that was never going to change. I couldn't just cut her out of my life, and I didn't want my children to end up in therapy. I'd call this a good relationship. We can communicate well. We can ask each other for child care during work trips, scheduling conflicts, and so on. We share custody 50-50-50, but I do pay child support. However, my relationship with her is friendly, but not a friendship. We live in Ohio, and her most recent affair partner lived in Florida. So she continued this relationship, and he left his child in Florida with his ex to buy a house with her, about 3 miles from where I live. They purchased their home in November of 2023. He lost his job in December 2023. I'm not sure why, but he didn't. As of this posting, I am still unemployed. Let me be clear. My ex cannot afford the house they bought on her own. She earns approximately €5,000 per year, and their home is worth €4.0. They took out a loan of $365K. It is not my problem. It is, however, humorous. Our friends have mostly sided with me, alienating her because I was honest about what happened. Her reasonable partner, I met for the first time. He wouldn't look at me, but I initiated the interaction by shaking his hand and saying his name. This is my name. I know you well because of all the pictures and texts you sent her name since then. When I see him, he does not look at me. I love it. Second, my children. Kids are great. I don't seem to mind the split and enjoy spending time with both parents. However, when his child comes to visit, he must sleep in my daughter's room. She's 9. He is 4 years old, and the first time they brought him up here, he was terrified and spent the entire night talking to my daughter. A note on this, literally he moved away in November. He arrived in Ohio in December, landed on a plane, and 2 hours later was put in a house. He'd never been in a bed. He'd never slept in with a girl. He'd never met and told everything was fine. My daughter prefers my house in this situation because she claims she can sleep. Finally, there's me. I'm thriving. I live in our marital home because I can afford it and she cannot, so I don't have to move. She was also very eager to leave, so I got a great deal on the equity buyout and literally got all of the furniture and belongings except 1 couch, 1 TV, her vanity, and that's about it. I met a wonderful person who is literally a breath of fresh air. She is a divorcee whose husband also cheated on her, so she understands what I've been through and is vehemently opposed to cheating, polygamy, or whatever. My children have grown to love her. She is a wonderful human being with a beautiful soul. She enjoys cooking with me. When I was married, I did literally all of the housework, is motivated and driven, and she guided me through a difficult period in my life because she had been through it. I hate paying child support, but I was able to negotiate a significant portion of it out of our state guidelines, so it's not too bad. I hate not seeing my children half of the time, but I do appreciate the freedom I have half of the time. This past year I've traveled more than I ever have in my life. I have several more vacations and getaways planned. I recommend that you seek therapy. I saw a therapist who was extremely helpful. I had so much experience. Is it my fault? I had been cheated on and she helped me realize how much it wasn't my fault. Do it. Do it. Even if you don't believe you need it. Do it. Move on. Move on with your life. Even if you miss your ex, move on. It is time. Do whatever it means for you. If that entails dating, great. If it means doing dumb things for a while, go for it. Make yourself happy by doing things you enjoy. Take the trip you've always wanted to make. Go out with your friends. Spend money. Have a great time again. Do not run cover for them. Tell your friends why you split up. Inform them about the affair. Tell them the specifics your ex can no longer control. You love yourself. You did not cause them to cheat. Every single person has options. If they are unhappy in a relationship, they can end it. They may divorce you. They do not have to cheat the cheat because they are unhappy people, and if they do something once, will do it again. Have peace. That's my final piece of advice. Make peace with yourself and your life. However, that could be healthy. Stay safe. Be intelligent. But find peace. Whatever it takes. Things get better. They'll get better. But you have to allow it. You must move on. You will thrive again. Let us give a round of applause or hope for his impeccable timing in the marital home and the majority of the furnishings who knew divorce could be so lucrative. Next, eBay will auction off the leftover couch and TV. Are there any takers? But let's not forget the true MVP therapy, because nothing says healing more than unpacking emotional baggage with a trained professional. Cheers to shrinks everywhere for letting us know that we're not to blame for our ex's wandering days. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.